Okay, Tara's been doing LLI in her classroom for 2 weeks now, and I would like to know how you're sustaining your independence with your students in your classroom.
So I think I've done a couple of things. Some are in the moment, and then some are proactive strategies that I've used. In the moment strategies, first of all, right when my LLI group comes to my table, they know the routine that they're going to start reading the books that we've read in the past right away. So that gives me about a minute to 2 minutes to scan the room to make sure everybody's in their designated spots, designated reading spots. Everybody's eyes are already in the book. And it also gives me a little bit of time to watch some of the reading behaviors, the independent reading behaviors that are already happening, or who I need to focus on while I'm doing my group, or who I need to check in with during my group. When I come sit down, we start our LLI, but I am also like looking up and scanning the room to those pockets of students, or that student or two who I know needs a little bit more reinforcement, whether it's a thumbs up, a wink, or like an eye, strict eyes to get them back into their books.
What reading behaviors do you know that you need to address with that wink or that eye?
You'll see a lot of times students, their eyes come out of their books, and that may be just because they need a quick break. It may be because they're not into their stories. So if it is a quick just glance up, and I've noticed that they are really reading their stories by keeping their eyes in the book, their mouths are moving, they're whisper reading to themselves, I'm going to give them a wink, right, to those students who need that reinforcement. To the students who are looking around for, distractibility purposes, I'm looking at them and I'm, pointing back to their book, or I'm showing them what they physically should look like to get back into their story. On that note, like looking around at my students, there are students who I've switched spots. Like there are students who they can read, but they may just need to go underneath their desks, or they need to move over one desk before they start to read. So those are kind of proactive strategies that I do beforehand. Another way that sustains ability is when I do have my LLI groups and they do go back to their books for independent reading the next day or the next couple of days. After we are finished with the book, I give them the paper copy of the LLI book itself that motivates them to read, and it's an on-level book that they already feel successful with and they want to work through. That keeps their engagement high. They're excited to take those books back to their book bins. My higher groups, I've introduced writing about reading. So they have a little bit of a longer, more detailed, heavy content story that they're reading. I introduced a strategy about writing about reading in their books. We created a section in their reading journals where they can go to, and during independent reading time, they have the choice, which also gains their motivation to either read their chapter book, to do a little bit about writing about reading, and or both.
Great. And then how have you used book choice to help your students stay independent?
So I have about 30 students in my class, divided by 5 days a week. About 6 students choose different books each day. So I have a Monday group and a Wednesday group. Those students are my lower level readers who need to switch their books more frequently because they're shorter books. They take their book bins, and the procedures have already been taught about how we go to the library, how we look at our books. We decide whether they were good fit books, whether they were not good fit books, why or why not, what levels they were at. We talked about how we put those away, and then they know that they get to pick 5 new books that are good fit I pick books. And for the first couple weeks, first of all, me observing the procedures and routines around that is important, But then the last 2 weeks, what I've done is I've actually had them do it during recess instead of during writing time, so I can gain a little bit more interest in their books that they've chosen. I've sat down and I've like talked to them about, ooh, why did you like this book? Why was this book hard for you? Let's go pick some books that you are interested in. If you like nonfiction books about frogs, let's look for a chapter book that is a fictional chapter book but has a science element to it. I've talked to some of them about my old books that I have from my childhood and how I loved it growing up. One of the boys picked up one of those books this week and was glued to that story. So this week and next week, and maybe just occasionally throughout the year, I'll do that to kind of pique their interest.
Great. Thanks, Tara.
You're welcome.